What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Simple Dad podcast. I'm your host, Quincy Forte, and I am joined by my illustrious, man, I gotta think of a better word, uh, partner, brother, producer, Mr. Remon of the Urban Advocate. What's up, bro?
Hey, yo, what up? What's going on,
Chilling,
brother?
chilling, man. We're another weekend to quarantine life. Half of the
Yeah,
year is over. And I don't really know what's happened all year thanks to Corona. Like, I mean, after
yeah,
March, it's like everything stopped.
yeah. Pretty much, it's like everything been all the day. Everything's kind of been a blur because every day is kind of bleeding into each other at this point.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like Andrew went on spring break and then never saw school again. Like it was crazy. And then in March, people started to realize slowly that all of their New Year's resolution goals were going down the drain because they're stuck in the house
mm,
with all the snack cakes,
hmm hmm
the whole pantry of cheat meals.
Right.
So no, it's funny. Um, but yeah, man, what's been up for the week with you?
Man, just another week of trying to stay out the way and trying to stay productive. Uh, like I've been binge watching quite a few things. I've been reading a little bit and studying a little bit. So just trying to keep my mind active.
Is it well? So I guess in the times that we're in, is it even considered binge watching, or is it considered just like passing time? Like, I feel like it's kind of like jail. Like, there's you only do 2 days. The first day in, and
And
the
there you go.
last day.
And there you go in and there you come out.
I
Well,
feel like I feel like
uh,
similar, right?
it's similar. Yeah, I mean, because what they say, do the time, don't let the time do you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's it's trying to make the most of the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I mean, the funny thing about time is that you can't get it back. Once it's
Hmm.
gone. So, uh, you know, while things is kind of slowing down a little bit, you have to find ways to stay productive and not allow the time in quarantine to drive you crazy, I guess.
Well, yeah, not only stay productive, I would say stay intentional. That's kind of one of the things I've been working on a little bit during this time. Is doing things with intention. Because at first, obviously, you're like, I just need to pass the time.
Hmm.
I mean, there's some dedicated few who are like, yo, I need to actually get, like, I can take this time to learn a new life skill. And that's
Right.
kind of when they were excited about the extra gain time freedom, right? So you're getting all this
Hmm.
extra time out of nowhere. You're like,
Hmm.
whoo, no more traffic, none of this stuff. I'm going to earn a life skill. But I feel like that kind of there's two people. Like one is that first initial wave who's like, yeah, let's use this to do a life skill, but then they eventually probably burn out. And now
Hmm.
they're to the passing time phase, and then you have the other
Hmm.
people who are at the passing time phase. Um, and then they're like, "Yo, like this is going on longer than I thought, so I might as
Right.
well learn
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
while I'm here." And I think I'm number two. Like I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
always in
Like
a
which
kind of a
one?
state. No, go ahead.
No, I was just asking which one do you consider yourself?
So I was gonna say, yeah, I think I'm number two because I'm always in a state of kind of learning. Like I wake up every morning, I read, I meditate,
Hmm.
and try and work out, and that's like my morning routine. Uh,
Hmm.
but then like I have more time now, and so it's kind of like, well, what do I do with this extra time? And at first, I was, I mean, just hey, let me read more, let me add another like a fiction book, or let me watch a show now before everybody wakes up and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and it was kind of just passing the time, but I think now more recently I've like it's funny that you start talking about like time. And I just heard something today that kind of talks about being, like I said, intentional with your time. So
Hmm.
even today, normally I would like I had to go run an errand to drop off stuff
Hmm.
for for Amazon return, and I would normally just turn on music and blah blah blah. But I find I'm listening to music now all day, being at home office, just to kind of have background noise. And so I'm like, man, I'm tired of it. It's strange, but I'm tired of listening to this music to pass the time. And so I was like, well, when I was driving to work, it was an hour there, hour home. I was listening to podcasts. So I was like, man, I need to bring that back because now my podcasts are stacking up all this
Yeah.
knowledge and wealth of knowledge. And it's like passive to where I could just be, I'm driving. So I'm just might as well take something in and learn something new for the day. So I think that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, I think there's I think there's a third group of people as well. Um, and that's the people who kind of bounce back and forth between the two.
Mm,
Like they bounce back and forth between being productive and being intentional about their time and just kind of passing time. And I feel like I kind of fall in that category where I have my days where I'm like, all right, I'm super focused and I'm super intentional. And then I have my days where it's just like, this it's like, man, is it 3 o'clock already? Like,
mm,
and I just kind of like I like a couple of days ago actually, I was kind of in study mode where I was just doing a lot of researching and stuff like that, and I had to kind of go from one area of this place to a completely different area because I'm like, man, I just need to get out of that zone for a little while
yeah,
because like it starts to like, all right, this stuff is starting to work on my brain a little bit. I need to kind of take a break. So,
right.
so I kind of have my day. Like I say, I kind of have my days where I'm like super focused and I'm super intentional about my time and how I utilize my time. And then I have my days where I'm just like, I'm not going to do anything today. So,
I think that's perfectly fair and it's allowable. I mean, just because you can't go 100% all the time. And I read
mhm,
this in that Ego is the Enemy book where it talks about like if you're going full throttle all the time and he talked about ambition. Like if you're always ambitious, like you're going to burn out. Like there's only like you need to focus on a small subset of things because you can't
mhm.
be good at everything. You can't be super ambitious and take on every project and stuff like that. So I think it's
And
good to have that time.
yeah, and that's one of the things that before the quarantine and before 2020, that's one of my biggest issues is that because of my ambition, I've always kind of like overloaded myself,
Hmm.
and it seemed like every few months or so, I go into this burnout mode. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Where it's just like I don't feel like doing anything. Like I've spread myself entirely too thin. Like and like I'm all over the place, and now I'm not productive at anything
Hmm.
because I'm trying to take on too many different things. Right.
Yeah.
So that's always been something that I've struggled with because, like you say, I am ambitious and I do have a lot of things that I want to accomplish, and um, when I see opportunities, it's like, all right, I need to go ahead and jump on that because that might be the thing that jumps everything else off. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
taking on so many different projects, but I over the past few years or so, I've kind of learned to scale back a little bit and try to focus on putting more energy into one thing instead of spreading my energy all over the place.
Yeah, no, and I heard something really awesome today, and it was Dr. Eric Thomas, the Secrets to Success podcast, where he talks about kind of scaling back and breaking things down. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, if you think about a math problem, you think about algebra. Like, if you look at it, um, it has logic to how you solve the problem, right? Like, you can't just look at a math problem in its totality
Mm-hmm.
and solve everything at the same time. Like, so if there's, you know, multiplication, division, exponents, and stuff like that, there's an order of operations. Like, so you have to break it down into small chunks and steps to where you solve those chunks first,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll get you the answer to the greater equation. So, and he kind of related that to life and stuff like that. So, I think that's kind of what we're talking about. Like it's that same sort of thing. Like if you just apply that simple thing to
Mm-hmm.
life, like it's what do you say? It's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So you do parentheses first, take care of those, look at all the parentheses, line those things up in your life, then do the exponents and all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, but yeah, no, so no, that's crazy. Like it's really funny how the universe works, and how all the things that I've been ingesting are like, I mean, I mean, we talk daily, but it's not typically about the stuff for the podcast.
Right. Right.
But it's kind of interesting how I bet a lot of people are going in parallel with this path as you're on more self actualization and realization as you're sitting with yourself more.
Mm-hmm. And I
So
mean, like, and I've always been one of those kind of people. Like, I'm a homebody, and, a bit of a loner. So I always kind of sit
I
with
didn't like none
myself.
of y'all to begin with.
Right. Like, so I'll say I was social distancing before social distancing was a thing. Right.
Yeah.
So, I've always been kind of, in that zone. But, with this time within the past few months or so, that's kind of like amplified because now it's like even if I wanted to go somewhere to distract myself for a little while, I can't really go anywhere. So
And it's funny. I saw the this meme. I can't remember it verbatim, but it talks about how it was like when the COVID thing first hit, and it was like, man, I give anything to go to one of them parties I said I was gonna go to, but never planned on going to in the first
it's like, man,
and
I wish somebody would invite me to a party I don't want to go to.
yeah, that I
Yeah,
don't plan on going to at all.
right.
But
Well,
yeah,
try to find a way to get out of anyway.
no. And then, yeah, it's just crazy, man. I mean, because people truly just want the idea of something to do,
Mm,
the option to be like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I got too
yeah,
much to do, or I just
yeah.
want to stay at the house. And now you're staying at the house. You didn't want to go hang out with these people anyway. And now you're like,
Hmm.
man, I wish I can go hang out with these people. Um, so it's funny. So let's talk about because this is one thing we did text earlier. What show have you been watching? And last night and more recently this morning.
Man, so within the last 24 hours, I noticed that they added the last dance the Michael Jordan documentary, or should I say the Chicago Bulls documentary.
Oh yeah, yeah,
uh,
it's more than
it,
MJ.
yeah, it's way more. Even though a lot of the documentary, a lot of it revolves around Michael Jordan, but that's just because Michael Jordan was the biggest star on the Chicago Bulls, right? But it's definitely a story, a larger story that's being told about the Chicago Bulls as a whole. But I realized yesterday that they added that to Netflix, so I was like, you know what? I've been hearing everybody talking about it. Um, I don't really have cable, so I'm like, I hadn't been able to check it out when it was actually airing. And then
Mm.
I prefer to kind of binge watch things anyway. So, I checked it out. Like I watched like maybe 6 episodes yesterday. Woke up and watched the last 4, especially while I was doing my morning workout. So, yeah, I've been watching The Last Dance, the Chicago Bulls documentary. Amazing documentary. It
So
actually lived up to all of the hype that I've been hearing about.
100%, and I kind of watched it on a rollout schedule because I have the
Mm-hmm.
ESPN Plus. They
Mm-hmm.
got me with the Disney Plus, ESPN Plus bundle. I was like, oh, that's not so bad of a price. Let me go ahead and get that.
Yeah.
Um, they spoke to the frugal man in me. Um, but yeah, so I watched it on 2 episode rollouts, and I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like when the hype built up, I was hearing it on podcasts and like just around the water cooler at work or whatever. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I'm really gonna watch this. Is it gonna be worth it? Um, but then I watched the first 2 episodes, and I was looking for the third one. I was like, oh wait, I gotta wait until next week. what you mean I gotta wait till next week? And it was kind of like that every week. Like I would watch
Yeah,
it, and it would
yeah.
like make you want more.
Hmm.
But then so I'm gonna ask you this question: if Instagram existed or any social media existed back in the day, do you think Michael Jordan would have been the giant that he is?
Would he have been the giant that he is? Yes. Would he have been as popular as he was? No.
Yeah.
He's not. That's one thing I was telling somebody. I was like, man, because I remember like in the very first episode, there was a guy who was, and this is for anybody who hasn't seen the documentary, there was a guy who was miking him up, who was putting the mic on him so that he could go on TV and do an interview. And then he tried to ask for an autograph, and Mike kind of shot him his look like, man, if you don't get out my face. But these are type of things that I've been hearing about Mike for years, right?
Hmm.
That he's not the most approachable person, and he's not the friendliest person in the world. So I honestly don't believe that had he been around or had social media been around during those days, uh, I don't think he would have been as popular. I think he would have been still Mike, still playing at the level that he plays at. I just don't think that he would have been as much of a role model. And I mean, you could say that about pretty much anybody who was out during that time.
Yeah, so it's funny because like I heard the Chameleonaire story where like Michael Jordan apparently dissed him and all that stuff, and I kind of half
Mm,
believed it, and I was like, I don't really know. Maybe he's having a bad day. But
right.
then like I watched this documentary, I was like, yo, the Mike he punched Steve Kerr in the face.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's not the only teammate that he punched. But then just hearing how he rode, what was his name? Scotty,
Mm.
Scott Burrell. The no, not Burrow.
I think it's Wallace.
No, why I gotta
I
find
know. I
his
know who you're
name.
talking about.
I think it's
I know who
Scott
you're talking about.
Burrell. But he like rode him hard, and just like relentlessly gave him a hard time. Uh,
Yeah.
Let me look
But
this up.
it's also like you know,
Yeah, it was Scotty Burrell. So Scott
okay,
Burrell,
yeah, yeah.
like
Number
he just
24,
said
yes.
he just said you suck, like you're horrible, and I was like,
Yeah,
yo, like every day.
yeah. I mean, but it's kind of like, but Scott took it. So it's kind of
Hmm.
like, whereas with, Steve Kerr, it was like, all right, Steve Kerr was like, all right, you're only going to push me so much before I start pushing you back.
Hmm.
Scott was more or less the type of person who was going to take it. So,
It's just funny, man. But no, I
yeah.
overall, I thought it was a great documentary. I kind of saw more into him.
Hmm.
But then, like, I thought the thing that was fantastic about it was you see all the driving forces behind all the other like pieces of the team too.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, before I piggyback off of that point, um, another reason why I wasn't so um, excited about watching it and feeling like I just have to watch it was because kind of like, I lived through this era. Like I was there. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like I was a huge basketball fan in the '90s. Like I done seen all of these games. I know what happened. One thing about this documentary is that it kind of exposed a lot of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. Like I had no clue that Mike and Scotty didn't get along with their owner. Like or with the GM of the team. Like I had no clue. Like I had no clue about all the stuff that was going on during that last season of the championship. During the 97-98 season.
Yeah.
Um, I had no idea what was going on because at the time, like I was just watching the games. I wasn't watching like all of the interviews and all the media coverage. Like I didn't pay attention to none of that stuff. I was just watching the games when it came on. So,
Yeah.
um, it was definitely an eye opener in that way. But just to piggyback off of your point, um, which was what? State it again.
The individual components of like what made the driving forces.
Right. So my thing is, as much as I admire Mike for his talent and his work ethic and everything, that we know about Mike, right? Um, I've always said, and people sit there and argue me down about it, like Mike, no one player can win a championship by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you saw how long it took him to win a championship from the time that he got into the league to like, which was 84. He didn't win his first championship until 91. Right.
Yeah.
So like, and that's not only because of maybe his talent hadn't matured to that point yet, but he didn't have the right pieces around him. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So no one person, especially when you're talking about a team sport, no one person can go all the way to the championship by themselves. So that's one of those things where I was like, man, you know what? I'm glad this documentary pointed that out because you did get to see how crucial people like Scottie Pippen and B.J. Armstrong and John Paxson and Steve Kerr and Dennis Rodman and Bill Cartwright, like you started to see how all of these other pieces kind of played into uh, what Mike was doing and led them to those championships. And Phil Jackson was
The mastermind.
the mastermind.
The having yoga circles
Right.
in basketball
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
But no, I think one of the things, speaking of Phil Jackson, I thought was awesome was that I didn't know that he was such a savage. Like back in the day, he was
Mm,
like Dennis Rodman before Rodman was there, and
yeah.
I was like, dude, this peaceful Zen guy was
Yeah.
like a beast. Like he was like throwing elbows at people, like playing in the roughest leagues in Spain and stuff like
Right.
that. That was
Yeah.
that was crazy, man, to hear that. But then, no, go ahead.
No, also, to talk about Phil Jackson for a bit, it was crazy for me to see how uh, what's the guy's name? Cross or whatever. Jerry Cross.
Oh, Jerry Krause, yeah, yeah.
Um, so it was crazy to me to see how he undervalued or how he didn't really appreciate Phil Jackson when, you know, or really anybody, because what you notice is that even the people who were successful on the Chicago Bulls team, including Phil Jackson and Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant, when they left, they might have even been just as successful or even more successful when they left there. But to see how Jerry Krause didn't really appreciate Phil Jackson and was willing to just let him go and say, as long as we got Mike, we're going to be all right. It's like, yeah, no. like like Phil Jackson was a huge, part of the reason why the Chicago Bulls went to the championship. And you
Yeah,
saw that because once he went to LA, he did the same thing.
yeah. And I was gonna say, so you can kind of see a pattern, right? So at first, I guess with that first coach before Phil Jackson, I think they won a championship, or they may have gone to the playoffs or division titles or something. But the whole team
They went to the
centered around,
playoffs.
yeah, the whole team centered around Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, yeah, we don't need other players. We'll just play Jordan for like 50 out of the 60 minutes that they're playing. And then once Phil Jackson, he was like, yo, we can't continue to run this dude. Like he's going to run out of energy. We got to start putting pieces around him. And so
Mm-hmm.
once they got the pieces around him, the team was so good that Krause was like, yo, it's the players. It's not the direction. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just raw talent. So let's just center around the players and then, hey, Phil, you're out of here.
Mm-hmm.
But like I think in something like a machine like that, like honestly, I feel that Bulls could have won another one, had everybody stayed together and
Yeah.
trusted the system.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Kraus got like power hungry based off of the success and was like, yo, I just want more. So what can I do now? I've done all these great moves before. I can do it again. And as long as, like you said, Michael Jordan stays or whatever.
And
So,
then after that season, they never they never won another championship.
yeah,
And I don't even think they went to the playoffs for another 10 years
yeah,
after that. So
it's very interesting, man.
yeah.
But so, um, as we talk about that, like one of the things that I wanted to sort of bring up is just this idea of determined winning drive, and like where and how that develops. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you kind of see it in the Last Dance, how I feel like every person on the team, every component had some sort of driving factor early on
Mm-hmm.
in life.
Mm-hmm.
So with Michael Jordan, it was not being picked, I think, for the varsity sophomore year in high school. He got cut from the team,
Mm-hmm.
and came home crying. Like him and his mom sobbed in each other's arms, and he just swore that that would never happen again to him. And so he just worked super hard, and got to the next level. And then you see kind of Scottie Pippen's story, to where uh, kind of the same thing. Like he had a family. I think he had like 50 kids at home, right? And then like
Right,
he had,
yeah.
but he had to, as a child, learn to work harder for attention, but then just to be able to get people out of there. And I think it was
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Rodman who he had a growth spurt. Like he was not even good until he had a growth spurt in high school. Oh, was that Scotty? Maybe,
I think it was Scotty.
yeah. So
Yeah, I think it
Scotty
was
had the growth
Scotty.
spurt,
Yeah.
and I think Rodman did too. Like, because I watched the Rodman 30 for 30. Like he had
Yeah.
kind of a similar experience to where he was
Yeah.
skinny. He was like
Mm-hmm.
not really good, but then he had a
That's
growth
where he
spurt.
got
And
the
went
name. That's where he got the name the worm from.
right. He was awkward as a
Yeah.
child and stuff like that. He had two older sisters, I think, and he just would dress up as a girl, as a kid, and stuff like that. But there was kind of an origin story with like his mom. Like he had issues with his mom, was
Mm-hmm.
seeking out family, and when in Oklahoma, where he went to school, to college at, it was kind of just always searching to find himself.
Yeah.
But like I think what's similar in all the stories is kind of like where it starts, and like um, determining, what is it? So defining moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting part about that is like watching that, and like you telling me that you watched it kind of brought up a memory. Uh, but then seeing, like, so we got Andrew, or we didn't get him. Ashley got a new watch, and so we gave him her old Fitbit.
Mm-hmm.
He's super excited. Like he just likes to be able to tell the time, so he knows when it's time to do his little workbook and stuff like that. But he
Mm-hmm.
also got really excited about being able to measure and count his steps and how much activity he's done for the day. And
Mm-hmm.
the Fitbit kind of gives you a little reward, so it's like gamification for being active. And so he sees that and he's like, "Yo, that's awesome." So the other day I went running, came home. He is waking up. He's like, and mind you, the day before or Friday, he had beat me in my steps, just because at work I just sit down all day. Like once it's time for me to work, I barely walk at all. And so he beat me that day. He got first place, and he had like 5,000 steps to my like 3,000. Um, and then so Sunday rolls around, I run. By the time he wakes up, I already have like 11,000 steps. He comes out, Daddy, how many steps you got? And I'm like, oh, I got 11,000. He's like, what? He's like, I'm supposed to win. And I was like, well, buddy, I've been up for like 3 hours. Like I've run, I've worked out. There's no way you're going to catch me today. So he's like, well, I only got 75. He's like, as soon as you cook breakfast, I think I need to go out for a run. I need to go run 4 miles so I can catch you. And I was like, but you're not gonna catch me. I was like, I've already, done like 4 miles. Like it's I was like, you can beat me tomorrow. He's like, no, I got to win today. Then he just like takes off and starts like running around the house trying to get steps. And he's like, what? I only got 1,200. He's like, Daddy, I got to go run. And so like this whole thing, and I was like, well, kind of, why do you want to beat me so bad? He's like, Daddy, it feels good to win. He's like, I don't
Yeah,
like being second place. And I was like, well, you're still beating mommy. Like you're not last. And he's like, no, I want to win.
yeah,
So today, kind of the same thing. I didn't run. I never run on Mondays. And he comes out and he's like, Daddy, how many steps you got? And I was like, well, I only got like 2,000 right now. And by the time it's time for me to sit down and work, I had like 3,199. And it didn't really budge from there. And so, like,
yeah.
dude, I have a picture on my Instagram story where he's just like walking back and forth in front of my computer um, and then counting steps. Daddy, this is where I'm at. Daddy, this is where I'm at. Dude, for like a literal, like almost an hour, like he's just trying to get his step count up. And then he he got past me and he's like, I'm not just satisfied with getting past you. He's like, now I have to demolish you. And so like now I think he's like 5,000 ahead of me. And I'm like, dude, where did this come from? Like, it's not something that like we ingrained in them. You have to win. Like, if you don't win, you're this or you're not valuable or anything like that. So it kind of begged the question in relation to the Bulls thing. Like, and I love your opinion on it. Like, where do you think kind of like the winning drive or that switch or lever comes from? Because in a 6-year-old, I'm like, I would think that that would need to be sort of pushed uh, and kind of displayed to him. But I don't feel like I always have to win or beat people. Like that's not just kind of in my nature. I just like the fun aspect of the experience.
Mhm.
So what do you think?
Um, Man, I'm struggling to say that it's just something that's innately embedded in people, in some
Mm,
people. Because um, well, I think just in general, we all want to kind of win, and
mm-hmm.
I just think that trait is stronger in some people than it is in others. Um, because like even when I was younger, I was like super competitive. Like I would get really upset if I lost at anything. Um, and in some cases, that was um, in some cases I would kind of lash out if I lost, and
Right.
it wasn't like me being angry at somebody else because they beat me. It was me being angry at myself because I'm like, man, I wasn't good enough today. Like I didn't get it done. Like you know what I mean. So I just think it's something that's inside most people, that competitive nature and the desire to win and to achieve and to accomplish things. But I just think that it's something that's stronger in some people than it is in others.
Well, and I
Um,
think I think you're right about that, and especially just because I do the 5Ks and 10Ks and stuff like that, and like
mhm.
I have a medal on my desk that I'm supposed to run a 10K for. And he looks at the medal, and like this is what trips me out is because I never think like first place, second place, third place,
Mhm.
or participation trophies. And he looks at the medal. He's like, what place do you have to get this medal? And I was like, no, this is the one that everybody gets, like just for signing up. And he's like, well, where's the first, second, and third place medals? Like, what they get? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I want to know what those look like. Like,
Yeah,
man, all right. No, we
and
got a
I
little
mean,
competitor.
yeah, and I think specifically with Andrew, sometimes it's just the the reward of winning and the reward of victory that kind of drives them. It's not necessarily the competition as much
Mm,
as it is like the feeling and the vindication that comes and the reward that comes from winning.
right.
Uh, but and for me, and I'm pretty sure this is kind of something that you do. when you're running your marathons is that you're not really competing with everybody else. One of the reasons why you don't really care what place you come in, you're not really competing with everybody else. You're competing with yourself
Mm,
and trying to you're trying to be better than you were, or trying to grow and trying to expand yourself. Um, and I think like some people, like that's what drives people, is not always trying to beat other people. I think it's trying to be better than they were yesterday and trying to be the best version of themselves.
yeah. And I was gonna say, so I think that that is 100% accurate. Um, I kind of get into, I guess, w- how as a non-competitor, like, do I continue to drive that? Um, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm non-competitive, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like that's not what motivates me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that medal or necessarily the winning? For me, it's about the experience and the learning from it. Like if I win, that's great. But if not, like how can I get better?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that like as you see towards the end of the Last Dance documentary, like you see where Michael Jordan gets emotional, like because he would do anything to win, and he's like he starts thinking like you see all the people who may have been hurt by a lot of the things that he did and how hard he pushed people to get the best out of them ultimately. Um, but that's kind of a lonely place to be when like you're just
Mm-hmm.
striving for this competition. Like you saw he did it with
Mm-hmm.
basketball, and he's like, hey, let's do the gambling thing. It's not necessarily even about the money, or I'm not addicted to gambling. I'm addicted to competing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is kind of where I don't want it to get to, where you kind of get addicted to like just the winning aspect. Like he would challenge people to
Mm-hmm.
like ping pong tournaments or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And then if he didn't win, he's like, yo, I'm going to stay up all night and learn everything dynamics about ping pong, golf, basketball, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. Like he would, kind of dive full headed in and not consider other people's emotions and stuff like that.
Okay.
So,
And I think there's a level of it where it's healthy in some ways, right? Because um, life is about growth. It's about um, you know, evolution, and it's about growing as people. And when you lose, people say you learn more from your losses than you learn from your wins, your
mm,
victories, right? And I think that you know that like I lost, so let me figure out how I can win in this area. I think that's healthy up until a certain point to where it starts to control your life, and you start to lose that empathy for other people.
mm,
Because I know with me, one thing that I had to learn over time, like there's certain things that I take very seriously,
mm,
and like maybe I'll be working or on something, and the people that I'm working with, they're laughing, they're joking, they're what I'm saying, like, and I would get really short with them because I'm like, yo, when it's time to work, I'm focused on work. Let's get it done. Like we can laugh and joke after. Um, but while we're doing it, like let's focus. And at some point I had to learn, like, yo, everybody's not like you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep,
so I had to learn how to be empathetic to those people who may not have that same thing with me that I have. So, you know, um, where it starts to become unhealthy, especially in case of Michael Jordan, is where you lose that, where you start to lack empathy for the people around you. Like you don't care how they feel. You know what I'm saying? Like you just want to achieve greatness and win. But over time, as you get older, you start to learn that winning ain't everything. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like there are things that are more important than winning, especially when you're talking about a game, right? And ultimately, even though, he's one of the greatest to ever play the game, at the end of the day, it is still just a game.
Yep. And then I think the other thing, especially when you tie yourself so tight into like one thing that you're really amazing at, like it's
Mm-hmm.
hard when that thing is over.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to like realize that you never really sort of knew yourself. And you look
Mm-hmm.
back kind of at friendships, and you're like, wait, like, like they
Yeah.
really like we were cool on the court,
Yeah.
but they really don't call me and say, how you doing today or whatever.
Yeah. Because
And it's just,
because you defined yourself by this one thing, and
mhm.
everything in your life revolved around this one thing.
Well, then you also have to look at, like, especially for him, he had a family. Like, I don't know, I guess their family dynamics. I've seen some interviews with the kids, and
Mm-hmm.
they seem fine, but at the same time, it's like when you are so much here, like given so much, by the time you get home or whatever, like, do you have anything left to give?
All right. Yeah. And I mean, because a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with people who are like, um, who are so driven to achieve things and accomplish things, the people who suffer for it the most are the people who are closest to you.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Because those are the people who you sacrifice. You know what I mean? Like you ended up sacrificing time with them, and um, you end up sacrificing like just opportunities to be involved in their lives,
right.
and for them to be involved in yours because you're so focused on trying to win and trying to accomplish and things. So yeah, I think, it all goes back to balance, trying to
Hmm.
balance the two out, you know what I mean? Not too much of one thing.
Yeah. And I guess that's the lesson that I'm trying to teach right now is just the fact that, like, I mean, honestly, like Andrew says, I want this or I want to win or I want to do that. And it's kind of like the life lessons where I'm like, well, I was like, you have to pick your battles because Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or even Saturday sometimes, unless I mow the yard, I was like, I'm not really that active. I was like, you have at least 3 or 4 days to where you're going to smash me, or you can possibly smash me because I sit down at the desk all day. Like, I'm not really truly that active.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I said, so you need to take those opportunities, learn how to strategize around those days so you can get those wins easily.
Mm-hmm.
But then I said, there's also going to be ebbs and flows. Like, you're not going to be able to win every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, so you have to learn how to accept it and kind of learn from it and be like, hey, it's kind of out of my control, like because I'm 6. I can't go up. I can't wake up at 4 in the morning to go run miles by myself or whatever,
Right.
or
Right.
get steps in. And so but then also at 6, man, there's more to life. Like you just have to sort of experience it. You'll have plenty of time to compete as you grow up. You're always going to be ahead of your sister. Like I mean, she's 6 years younger than you, unless she's
Yeah.
some phenom, which she's probably going to be a wrestling phenom. I was
Right.
like, you have
Yeah.
you have
She's pretty strong,
opportunities.
man.
Yeah.
She's pretty
Um,
strong.
you have
Uh,
opportunities to sort of experience that. So.
yeah. And then, another thing that's kind of dangerous about, being so competitive is that you start to get into this thing of you fall into the trap of comparison and
Mm,
trying to outdo other people. That's why, I think it's healthy to be competitive and have this competitive nature, but I think the healthiest form of it is when you're trying to outdo yourself because the more you get caught up in okay, this person did that and that person did like and I didn't, what I'm saying? Like it starts to eat at you and you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, and that's a trap. You know what I
mm,
mean? Because like you said, like there are going to be days where you're running or you're being active one day and you're going to outdo him. And on those days, like like you don't want it to start playing tricks with his mind, you know what I mean? And to where he's getting caught, oh man, he did better than like, because as you get older and as you become an adult, you don't want to constantly be looking around at other people and seeing how they doing. Like you have to run your race and be the best version of yourself that you can be.
Well, and I think something that you really said that was important that I mean, I'm not sure if you caught, but um, just the use of was it is the adjective um, maybe the adverb. I don't know what form of language it is, but you said he did better than me, and not he is better than me, like better than
Yeah.
me as a person, sort of thing. And so just kind
Mm-hmm.
of that little switch is a mentality shift,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, there is always going to be someone who does better than you. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to do better than people at different things because everybody's different and has their own talents and strengths and good days and bad days. Like the wind
Mm-hmm.
might be just right,
Mm-hmm.
um, but um, the fact that they're not better than you as a person. Like every person is valuable. Like, and I think that one of the main quotes um, about Jordan is that sure he made a lot of game winning shots and he made a decent amount of shots, had a decent percentage, I guess. But he missed a lot more shots than he made.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if you think about it that way, you're like, whoa, like he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Missed a lot more shots, but he took a lot of shots. And
Exactly.
so, you can't hit them all. You can't win every game. Like Jordan had losses, um, and even like if you think about baseball, I think to have a 3% batting average or 300, so like is a phenomenal baseball player. Like you look at most of the baseball players, most of them are batting 0.33 or whatever percent, and that's only 30%. That means 70% of the time that you step into the plate, you strike out. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can get on and hit 30% of the time, you
Mm-hmm.
can be a all-star level baseball player. You just got
Mm-hmm.
to swing. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh, so I think that's where I get caught up because I was like, it's just the effort. Like it's the amount of effort that you put forward. It's not necessarily the winning all the time. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's what did you put into it, sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So,
Yeah. Agree
uh,
100%.
so yeah, that's been kind of, and I think we can leave it there, man. It's just like how much um, effort, and it's kind of a valuable lesson for me. And then, like I said, just kind of watching the Last Dance brought up. You told me you watched it in Last Dance. I was like, ooh, there's a lot of good points in there, just
Yeah.
about life in general. But even me as a parent, man, I'm not gonna win with every lesson. Like I may feel like
Mm-hmm.
I'm a philosopher, and then
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
all the answers and stuff like
Right.
that. But if you look at our parents, you look at just parents, as we see these lessons now, we're like, yo, nobody knows what they're talking about. Like everybody's just doing the best that they can. If I can
Right.
get on base 30% of the time, like
Right. You're
I'm
doing good.
MVP. Yeah.
You're doing good. Like what I think what was it, White Man Can't Jump. What Rosie Perez said, she said sometimes when you think you won, you actually lost. And
Mm,
sometimes when you lost, you actually won. And sometimes you don't win or lose. Sometimes it's just it just is what it is. Like you draw, like it's a tie or something. Like, and that's reality. Like that's real. Like sometimes you think you won something and you actually lost. So I mean,
as a kid, I had no idea what that means, but now as an adult, I
it
understand
makes so much more
100%.
sense, don't it?
I had no idea what that was talking about.
Yeah, like back then when I watched it, it was like I had the same look on my face that Woody Harrelson had, like, huh? But yeah, as you get older, it starts to make more sense. Starts
The
to
only
sink
thing I,
in on you.
the, the main thing I learned from that movie as a kid is don't get hustled, and that a quince is a fruit.
Like I never knew there was a fruit that started with the letter Q.
Yeah. Oh man, what a great movie. But I think,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's a good place to end it. That was a
Yeah.
bar that you just dropped, and so yeah, this has been another episode of the Simple Dad podcast. If you like it, hit the thumbs up below, subscribe, listen for more content. Head over to Instagram at the Simple Dad Pod, and let us know what you think. Again, you can find me at Quincy Forte across all socials, and let them know where to find you, sir.
Hit me up at theurbanadvocate.com. You can find all my social media there.
Awesome. So, yep, it's been another great episode, and we'll see you guys next time.